My name is Katie Arwood, and I am the MCC Library Director, and on behalf of Montcalm Community College, I want to welcome you to this year's One Book County Unveiling. So thank you everyone for showing up. At this time, I would like to introduce Bethel Brady, who is Carson City Crystal's Library Director. So Beth, you want to come in?
Hello, thank you, all of you, for being here. We at One Book, One County, Montcalm truly appreciate you, and we have a lot of fun putting the One Book, One County reading program together. Today I am very happy to honor the newest public library directors in our county. They have the delightful job of revealing and unveiling our feature title this year. And so I'm going to ask these very pleasant and talented and hardworking librarians to come forward. We have Cheryl Smith from the Timothy C. Howenstein Reynolds Township Library. I got it. In Howard City. And we have Deanna Riggleman from the Tamarack District Library in Lakeview. And we have Stefanie Reed from the Flat River Community Library here in Greenville. Don't unveil it yet. Thank you very much for being willing to take on this task, and welcome. You're all doing a great job at your libraries in Montcalm County.
Thank you.
And back to Katie Arwood.
So I get to tease the book a little bit, so maybe while you're shaking your butter, your brain is rolling. You see, we're kind of dressed a little country. So this story that we're going to be reading this summer was published in 2019. It is a story that is actually a fictionalized, true account of real subjects in the history of Eastern Kentucky. It was on the New York Times bestseller list, the Los Angeles Times bestseller list, USA Today bestseller list. It won several national awards as well as Forbes Book of the Year. And what else do I want to tell you? Oh, this is my favorite fact about it. The year it was published, it caused controversy with one of the authors of a favored past One Book title. So I don't know if anybody has any guesses, but without further ado, if you'd like to unveil. This year's read is... The book woman of Troublesome. This is a super book. This is a super read, and it is so fun to recommend this title because it was only just weeks ago that she published the sequel. This is the kind of book when you're done reading it, you immediately go, I have to know what happened next. So by selecting this title, we give you that opportunity. So since you're shaking your butter, we have one more little task to do, and that's to hand out 4 prizes. So Sonia, if you want to bring those up. And let's see here. Stacy, can you come up for just a minute? I'm going to have you draw our prize winners. I'm shaking. I'm frightened. So I'll tell you what's in the prize bags. We're giving the winners a copy of the book, a copy of the sequel, and then goodies. So, and at the end of the program, we do have copies of the book and the sequel. Some we put into sets, and they will be for sale outside. So you want to wiggle your fingers, and the winner is
Jane Anderson Beach.
all right. Yes, I have 4 to give.
We have 4.
All right.
Very exciting. Jeanette Kipp.
Wow. Yay. Stay out of my pockets, ladies.
I guess so.
Can you show us the sequel?
I would be happy to show you the sequel. I'm going to come over here and you want to be careful when you are looking to pick up the book if you're going for the sequel, because you can see it looks very similar. And it's called The Bookwoman's Daughter. So, yeah, about the same length, and it's just really wonderful too. So, we also have flyers in the back when you leave that talk about our upcoming events. We will have those on Facebook, our social media site, as well as our website. Just lots of goodies and fun throughout the summer. And without further ado, I'm looking for my special guest speaker. He's in the back? Oh, there he is. Oh, before I introduce him,
I'll stay back here.
yeah. Come on.
All right.
So, Brian Gardner. He wanted a huge introduction. Everything I can say about him, because I'm so fond of him, as he is my friend and my colleague.
So as Katie said, my name is Brian Gardner, and I work here at Montcalm Community College, actually at the Sydney campus. I actually work for Michigan State University, so I'm going to put on my hat, and I'm putting on a hat because I'm also going to be cooking, and I want to make sure I don't get like hair in there, so I want to make sure we're doing that. So I put on my Spartan hat today, and this is a pretty cool program that I get to coordinate. We are Michigan State is well known for putting on agriculture. As a matter of fact, they're in the top 10 in the world in teaching agriculture and natural resources. Pretty cool. The one thing that I think that and Michigan State can arguably do things that do really good. There's some things that maybe some people say they don't do so well. A lot of the universities don't. Is they don't teach those core classes, those beginning classes, nearly as well. And they found if they connect with community colleges, you guys are set up to be be an awesome partner for us. So what we do is we partner that high-tech ag programs we have at MSU with the community college education, where those instructors are there to teach, because that's what they want to do. They want to teach. It's not to do research like they do at the university. So it's a little a little bit about that's where I work now. I've been here since 2020. I got hired during the pandemic. Got to do an interview. I remember doing it right on Zoom, so that was pretty interesting. Got to go through that whole experience. Before that, I worked 13 years coordinating the fair up in Elma, which is a pretty cool thing. When you manage a fair, you get to understand the relationship of the agricultural community, because so many people in that area, the fair was a huge asset to the community. People loved it. It's a great reputation, and we worked really hard to maintain that reputation. So that was a great experience for me for a long time. And then prior to that, I worked at the Community College Foundation for 3 years, right back here at MCC. And then before that, I was the Montcalm County 4-H agent. So I've spent a lot of my life working in agriculture. And one of the things that we learn in agriculture, the biggest thing that agriculture does is we work to teach about food. And that's the main thing, the main product of what we have, and food is what we eat. You think about a farm nowadays, and I'm going to relate this back to the book here in a little bit, because think about a farm. How many people here today are actively involved in farming? It's a small handful. As a matter of fact, production agriculture is about 2% of the population right now. Now, there's a lot of people that work in agriculture that are not necessarily working on the farm. They might be selling seed. They might be doing crop insurance. Lots of different things that work with that. As a matter of fact, for every farmer, there's 24 people employed in agriculture business. But if you're looking at the farm nowadays, there's not that many people. Why is that? Because farmers do a really good job of producing food for us. And they can do it a lot cheaper, a lot better than we do today. Who here has been in a modern tractor? I'm not talking about a tractor from the, grandpa used to have, the little one seat that's got the 3-point hitch and the power takeoff and the couple, 4 wheels. I'm talking about a modern tractor. Some of you guys have. Now, if you're set in one of those, that's an awesome experience because it doesn't look like the tractors of Grandpa's. It looks to me more like a Starship Enterprise than the other, because farming, one of the things that they did right at the beginning is they do, they high technology. They're connected with satellites. They're connected with a lot of things to make that farm equipment more productive. Matter of fact, the technology in that tractor can drive itself. You don't have to drive it. You can also, you can set like if you're planting seeds, you can set it. So you're planting, at this spot in the field, you're going to plant 3 seeds per foot. At this spot, you're going to 2, and that spot down there needs a little more room for it to grow, so they're going to do 1 per foot. It's very high tech. And the reason that's important is that really is going to help that farmer be able to produce a lot more food and a lot cheaper and a lot, and so we go to the store and we all talk about inflation right now that's happening, and you think, oh my gosh, I got to pay, instead of $3, now I'm paying $5 for my favorite thing of flour. But the thing about it is, that's still pretty cheap compared to what it was years ago. Right now, the other thing in farming that's changed a lot is you got a lot of people working to make the seeds better, and everything that we do tends to be able to make this a little bit farming more advanced and able to connect a little bit better with this. Now that wasn't the same as it was now back in the Depression era, okay? Because the book is set, and Katie let me get a sneak peek of the book, so I feel really honored. Thank you, by the way. But the book is set in the Depression, which is really a neat time for me, and I'm not, obviously didn't live in that time, but I come from a very small family. My dad had 1 sister, so I've got 1 cousin. I've got 2 brothers, a brother and a sister. But I've got a very small family, which meant I had a lot of access to my grandmas and grandpas growing up. And my dad died when I was a young man. My grandpas both passed away pretty young in my life as well. So I had a lot of connection with my grandmas, and that's probably where my love of cooking has come from. But I also spent a lot of time asking them questions. What was it like growing up? Because I realized a lot of times when I was helping them, especially towards the end of life, they wanted to talk about the time that they were, there. So I loved hearing their stories, and they loved telling the stories, and so we talked a lot about that. So during the Depression, my one grandma, she was from this community, Christine Sharp. She grew up in Stanton, just west of there a little ways, and she's the person that told me that you go uphill both ways to school. When she went to high school, she literally she had to walk to high school about 3 miles each way, she told me. And so I'm like, oh yeah, Grandma, you walked uphill. Now, I'm a runner. So I used to have a friend I still have a friend, but he just used to run with him a lot. He lived in Stanton. And we ran a 6-mile loop, and we came back almost by where Grandma lived to run up where she grew up, to run that hill. And I literally realized, you go downhill a lot, but either way you go, you're going to go uphill a lot. So she literally did go walk uphill both ways. But she grew up during the Depression. She was born in 1912, so right about the time she was a young woman, the Depression hit. And it hit pretty hard. And that was, she's comes from a very Danish community. Who here is our fellow Danes with me? There's some other people that have Danish roots. I can't be the only Dane here. All right, there's some Christensen, Sorensens, whatever. But she was a Christensen, and she's very, grew up in that era. But she literally, when the Depression hit, the family they were poor, probably beforehand. And I remember she talked about harnessing a horse by standing on a milk crate and some of those different things. But the thing that struck me the most is when she was a young woman, she had to go to work for a family here that lived in Greenville that had some money. She did that. She stayed with them. She was boarder there, but then she cooked and she cleaned for them, which was an interesting fact. I mean, you don't really think about that. I wouldn't send my daughters off to live with somebody to cook and clean for them. But when you got lots of mouths to feed, you do what you have to do. So again, there was the rest of the family was doing a lot of things there, doing things to tend for their own house. My other grandma, Gardner, she also lived around here, but she grew up in Lowell, and her and actually she had some family also here. She moved to Lowell a little later, but she had family here. She was the fourth of 4 girls. So I've got 3 girls, and I didn't ever try for 4 because I'm sure we'd have had 4th girl, because I think my family's meant to have strong, independent women like my grandma's were. Now, my grandma Gardner, she had, so she was the baby. I remember listening to the number 3, my Aunt Neva, who was a sweet, sweet person. And she talked about how when she was growing up, again, Depression era, now they would have been a little younger than my Grandma Sharp, but during the Depression, her dad told her she had to go out and steal potatoes so the family could eat. And I don't know, but that resonated with me. To understand the struggles this community suffered during that time. There were mass unemployments, and people, farming was your way to survive. You had to be able to grow what you ate. And I think that was a pretty cool thing. So my grandma would go to stay with her aunt and uncle a lot. Her aunt and her dad were brother and sister, and her aunt and uncle couldn't have kids, but her uncle was a store owner. So she grew up, and so she would go over there. She said every time I went over, I stayed a little longer until I finally just didn't go back home. So she was raised, she said, I really had 2 sets of parents, but she was raised by her mom and dad, who were really her aunt and uncle. And the store owners didn't suffer as much. So she would talk about going to the movies, and she would talk about all these things that she would do in her life that were pretty normal for that. And she lived in Lowell in the town, so she had a pretty easy upbringing, because people still needed to survive and they had to go to the store. They had to buy their staples and stuff. So you think about where we are there, and that's going to transition a little bit over to the setting of the book. Does anybody know where this book is set? Yeah. You want to share with us? It's in eastern Kentucky, in the mountains of eastern Kentucky, right? So this is also set during the Depression, and it's got some really cool things. So a lot of the themes throughout the book, Katie tells me, I've not been able to read the whole thing. I got started, and I will be reading it, because it sounds fantastic. But a lot of the theme, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this revolves around food. Well, that's the reason we're kind of going to be doing some cooking here today. But you think about that area in eastern Kentucky, and it would be rocky. The soil wouldn't be as well as we have here. Now think about, we're blessed. The glaciers came down and they blessed us a lot of nutrients in these soil when they receded, and we have a lot of stuff right here. We've got a great place to grow here in Michigan, and farms can grow a ton of food. If you're in eastern Kentucky, your agriculture is not going to be king. So now think about, we're going to back it up from the Depression back to World War I. In World War I, and I love this because my daughter's been studying AP US history, so she's been going and memorizing all these things and learning about this time, and we talked a lot about that. And during spring break was World War I, and we talked a lot about that. And there was a mass exodus of people from their farms to go to factories because they had to build for the war effort. And that was a thing, and it happened a lot in the Appalachian regions. The people tended to leave there, and a lot of them went to work in coal mines. Well, World War I gets over, the coal mines are all ramped up because they've got a lot of employees, but they don't need the employees anymore. So the employees went away. And there's mass unemployment happening at the coal mines. So the Depression hit that area earlier. And where would they go? They would go back to their homes. They would at that time, they said in the midst of the Depression, there was about 80% unemployment in that region. That's a staggering amount of people out of work. And that's it's a staggering number, but also that meant probably most of those people moved back home with their comfort, back to their roots. And a lot of them would then have to figure out how to survive on their own. That means agriculture. At the beginning, I talk about agriculture producing food so easy and cheap for us now. At that time, most people were involved in their own, growing stuff that they were going to eat. Whether it was a big garden, and a lot of people in rural Kentucky spent a lot of time canning stuff. They might go in the woods, and they might find it might be time for apples. There's a lot of apples that were planted there, so there were lots of apples they could get. And they might, they're going to figure out how to can the apples. They're going to can different fruits and vegetables so they have things to eat. They're probably going to have a cow on their farm because they're probably going to want to be able to have milk, and that's one way they're going to do it because the one thing they're probably not going to have access to is a store. And it makes me think of traveling. When I was a young man, my wife and I got to travel through Bolivia, South America. And I remember going on this bus trip where it was a small group of MSU employees, and that's back when I worked for Extension. We're traveling through this rural countryside along down this huge valley, so it was rocky, and I remember going by settlements there where people were staying and seeing these little patchwork quilt type farms that they tried to grow things. And I realized they were a long ways from any kind of store. They certainly had nothing like a Walmart or a Meijer's, but they might have had some little spot there they could get stuff. But they had to grow what they were going to eat. And I think that's what we call subsistence farming. I learned that term on that trip. Well, I think if you think about rural Kentucky, where this book is set, it's going to be subsistence farming, things that you can have right there. So there's going to be a lot of that, a lot of growing your own food and being able to maybe sharing a little bit with neighbors. Maybe you're going to be growing maybe you're going to grow corn over here, or we're going to do something else over there. So today we're going to transfer this a little bit more. I'm going to make a mess. Katie told me I could, so it's okay. So I apologize if I make a mess on the floor or anything like that. But anyway, so I'm going to make some pancakes. In the book, we talk about making buckwheat pancakes. So that's what I'm going to stir up. We've got pancakes we're going to be serving to you guys today. So that's why you probably guessed you've got some syrup on the table, and you got some butter. You've been making butter. How's the butter coming? Everybody getting it? Going good? Awesome. So that's really super. So when you think about that, inside that butter, you've got two things. You're getting a lump, and you're getting some extra liquid. That extra liquid is buttermilk. And that's a byproduct that people learn to use a lot. And we're going to be cooking today with buttermilk. So the recipe I'm using is my family's recipe for pancakes. And I'm going to be adding some buckwheat to it. Why buckwheat? Buckwheat is a grain that's grown very frequently in rural Kentucky. Because it's easy to grow, it's got a short growing period. It is not a cereal like we would think it's related to wheat. It's really not related to wheat. It's a broadleaf for wheat is a grass like barley or rye or something, or rice or something like that. But it is a good thing. So we're going to put some of that. We're not going to completely make it all buckwheat. I'm going to make it some flour. So this one, but the ones over here are completely made from regular flour. So you guys can sample that, and you guys can sample the some that we're going to be making right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my things when I make a mess. I hope I can still, yeah, okay. So some of the ingredients that we're going to have, and the other thing I think to think about when you're cooking, the one thing that I've always thought that when we have, you're making a meal, is you're going to sit down and you're going to share that with people, whether that's rural Kentucky, whether that's 1930s Michigan in Montcalm County, or that's today. We break bread together. That's something very special. That's a time you get to sit down and relax and enjoy. Everybody's doing something that we have as humans all have to do, and I think that's something to celebrate. So in my family, we always try to figure out ways to do that. I do a lot of breakfast. Every morning, actually, I send my kids off and all the neighbor kids off with a little tray of hot breakfast, a homemade from my kitchen, that they get to eat. So I think that's something that's something my dad always did for me and my family growing up, and I always wanted to make sure I'm doing that for them. So as my kids are getting a little older, and now I get my elementary kids are getting on the first bus shift, I'm thinking this might be a little more complicated, but we'll make it work. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to start mixing up some of this stuff. And I'm going to put on some gloves so I can do this real quick.
Brian, I
Yes.
turn these on.
All right.
Is there a time to come up, or?
You're certainly welcome to. So these guys are going to start making out some pancakes to get them going. I'm going to make mine here from scratch. Shouldn't take too long. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mill some flour from this buckwheat, because we went and got some. Katie figured out how to get some buckwheat. We went to Harvey Milling in Carson City, and they had some right in stock. And I've got a little mill here. One of the things working in agriculture, you always want to learn. I always figure it's best to talk to people around food. So that's what we're going to do a little bit today. I'm not going to use what I've milled. I've already got some back here that's already been milled. because we get a lot of the chaff in there, and we've got, this is sort of been separated, and it'll be fine to eat, but I wanted to make sure that this is going to be very chaffy that's coming out of here. But I'm going to go ahead and stick some in here so you guys can see this work. So I do that to show you guys that one of the things that would be in a town in Appalachia, they would have a grist mill. So they would be able to grill, to do their own stuff. There probably should be in the back room, there should be some ladles to dip that out with, guys. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So you're going to have a grist mill to be able to grill that up. Now, if you look at this, what I just put out of here, there's a ton of the black still in here, and then you got the flour, so we need a little bit of sifting. We found, I improvised earlier today, and I got this sifted out, but I'm not going to take the time to do that up here for you guys, or I'm have you bored to tears. And I don't want to bore anybody today. All right, so we're going to go ahead and mix this up. I'm going to use this bowl here, and the first thing we're going to use is figure out how much flour we have in this. And I've got some more flour, regular white flour over here. And we're going to measure out, I'm going to go make this in a bulk thing. I do have recipes out in the front if anybody wants them on the way out, that you can grab a recipe card, right, Katie? Out front?
Yep, they're out.
So if you're welcome to do this, this is based on 2 cups of flour for the recipe here. Mine, I'm going to do 8. So I'm going to get a little bit more. And probably got about a cup here of buckwheat flour. We're going to stick in. Buckwheat, by the way, is also gluten-free if anybody's worried about gluten. So that's a neat thing of this. And having your own food mill, you can grind a lot of your own stuff. So that's kind of a cool thing to have. So anyway, I've got about a cup here that I processed earlier that I'm going to stick in with the other flour over here. Right. One of the things I do when I cook with flour, one of the people told me, is I always kind of fluff it up before I measure it out. Or I use a food scale, which is easier yet. It's really quick to do that. But today I'm fluffing it up. I'm going to put, I've got one cup of, I'm going to actually put this in here so you guys can see it a little better. I've got 1 cup of flour, of buckwheat flour, so I'm going to put 8 cups of regular flour in here. So I'm going to make this 4. And I always kind of, when I'm cooking in crowds, and I know I've got to do 7 things, I kind of put them around so I can see where I've been, and I can count the tops in case I get lost, lose track of where I'm at. It's interesting because I go around to a lot of schools and I do a lot of presentations to talk about agriculture, and I always, because ag and food go so close together, a lot of times I make pancakes with students there, and so few people have no idea they can eat pancakes outside of a box. If they actually, most people feel that all the pancakes they have would come from a box, and this actually doesn't. So that's pretty cool. So there's our flour. And we're going to mix that up with a few other ingredients here. I'm going to make sure I got this here. Put some soda in this. And I'm going to use a full tablespoon for this. Now, baking soda is a pretty cool thing because what it basically does is it reacts with an acid. Now, buttermilk happens to be an acid. So when you put this in here, it's going to react with that and give you some lift. What's that mean? It's going to give you some air into that pancake. The other thing, and that's what makes buttermilk pancakes a lot more light and fluffy typically than a regular pancake, is you got that also working in there. Then the other thing you work with is butter or baking powder, which you probably all know, because I've got some of you guys are bakers, and you can put this in, and you're going to actually need a little more of that. I need a quarter cup here. So baking powder is works by heat, and this is double-acting baking soda powder, so it actually works in 2 different temperatures. Help give you a little bit more rise throughout the baking process. So that's pretty critical to have in your ingredients as well. Okay.
That's all right.
Soda, salt. I'm going to measure salt the way my grandma taught me, so what she always said, to put some in your hand, you can figure out if you got a teaspoon or a tablespoon. And this is just because I'm Benton's probably in rural Kentucky. This would have made a pretty good table. This would have figured this would be a tablespoon of salt. So that's where we're going to put that in. And that's how my grandma would do it. All right, I got to put some sugar in. The one thing I'm not sure of, in all the research that I've done in rural Kentucky, I'm not sure where the sugar would have come from. So I'm not sure. This is cane sugar, and they could have bought that. The sugar, most of the sugar we eat here is sugar beet sugar, so we actually grow it in farms around Montcalm County. Grow some sugar beet, especially Gratiot County. We see huge piles of them. But I don't know where rural Kentucky would have gotten that. But I'm guessing they would have had a store, probably a little bit like maybe not quite as nice as the one from Olson's Mercantile on Little House on the Prairie, but probably not as much staff as Olson's Mercantile. But it would have been similar, I'm guessing. Someplace they could have went and got some stuff. But again, they were pretty poor at that time. There was a lot of things, so I'm guessing they wouldn't have spent a lot of time and a lot of money buying things. I put sugar in my batter. I'm guessing in rural Kentucky they probably didn't, because sugar would be pretty expensive to have. So, yes, absolutely.
All right, so I'm just going to tell you now that we're serving pancakes. There is syrup and butter. And the butter that's in the little container is salted butter. The butter that you're making is unsalted butter. So if you wanted to taste the difference. And in addition, we have some grape jellies and jams. And then I've sprinkled these throughout the tables with the syrup in it. First, Kurt Kemperman, who is our digital arts guy in that, he has a blueberry one. Anyway, this is blueberry syrup. So you might want to try a little blueberry syrup as well.
No problem. And actually, I'm betting probably in rural Kentucky there would have been some wild huckleberries maybe growing, that they probably would have went and figured out that time of season and went and got there. I know my grandma always went and picked wild blueberries. So that would have been something they probably would have served with their buckwheat pancakes. So I put 8 eggs in here to get this going. Wash it. And then I'm going to mix in some buttermilk. How you guys coming over there? You guys getting some pancakes? All right. Okay. Now at home I would make my pancakes a tad bit thicker, but here I'm going to thin them out a little bit so we're not, they make sure they cook all the way through and stuff. So I would make 1 cup of, it'd be like 1-to-1 from ratio of buttermilk to flour. I always use some vegetable oil whenever I'm making pancakes too, so they don't stick. About a half cup's going to go in here today. So how are the pancakes tasting? Who's had some so far? Good? Awesome. Oh, it should be about the same. It just got a little bit of, got some texture to it, yep. The one thing I try not to do is over mix my pancake batter, because the more you mix it, the more you bring out the gluten in the water, yeah.
I help people set up allergy-free diets. Buckwheat is from the rhubarb family.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's fantastic. You everybody hear that? It's buckwheat's from the rhubarb family. Now, I wish rhubarb sounds really good right now. That sounds. Another thing that we'd find, I think you'll find talked about in the book, that would be from rural Kentucky would be cornbread. Cornbread probably would be a little more than this. It's just we need to have some sort of oven to cook it in, which we didn't have, so we thought pancakes would work the best, so we could fry them on these griddles. I hope you guys got a little bit of a taste of, we'll have some buckwheat one stuff here as soon as this gets heated up. So if anybody wants them, come see us at the end. I'll turn this back over to you. Thanks, Katie.
That's really good syrup. Very good.
Is this the one you made?
So it looks like we're a little more than halfway done with serving the pancakes. I thought I would take this opportunity to show you our brochure. This is on the back table when you exit. And I wanted to tell you about our next two events. Midway through One Book on Wednesday, July 13th at 6 p.m. we will be hosting our next event at the Heritage Village. So, since this has such a historic setting, if you want to come out to the Heritage Village, there's our superstar right there. And we will be meeting at the church, and Reverend Charnley will be explaining what it was like to be a circuit rider in Montcalm County back in the day. So you can get the feel of what it would be like to deliver such a vital service on horseback in Montcalm County. And his ancestor actually did that, so he'll be wearing the clothes, and he will be in character. So that's a good thing to look forward to. And I do want to tell everybody that the church is a little bit into Heritage Village, so you do park on MCC's west parking and walk the little path to the church. There is a ramp on the church.
What time?
It will be at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, July 13th. Immediately following his presentation, just kind of kitty corner from the church building is a lovely pavilion, and we will be having like an ice cream social, so come and enjoy cake and ice cream after Reverend Charlie's presentation. We will be closing One Book on Tuesday, September 20th at 6 p.m. We will be on the Sydney campus. And we will be hearing from Al and Dave Eicher, who are pretty famous Michigan historians, and they will be presenting when Amelia came to Michigan. So who knew that for 10 years through the 30s, the 1930s, Amelia Earhart spent lots of time in Michigan. So we're hearing a whole Amelia Earhart in Michigan story. So if you're a history fan or want to hear something about another strong woman, that's what to do. So I think we're moving right along up here still. And also Patty's got us cooking in back, so stay tuned for your pancakes.